I want to give you guys a couple pointers to kind of help you out as far as like matching slope fields and their differential equations are concerned. So one thing that I want you to look for, and these are really the first two things to look for, is if everything is the same on a horizontal line. If you think about like what a horizontal line is, the equation of a horizontal line is always y equals something. So that means dy dx is only in terms of y. Now, on the flip side of that, if everything is the same on a vertical line, that means dy dx is only in terms of x. So let's kind of look over at some of these problems initially. So when we're talking about them being the same on a horizontal line, that means if you draw a horizontal line, every slope on that horizontal line is the same. So it looks like to me, A is the same on a horizontal line, and then D is the same on a horizontal line. So that means those are only going to have a y in them. So when you look at your answer choices down here, these two only have a y in them. So that means those are going to have to be our answers. So what we would be kind of looking for then is a third thing. Where does dy dx equal 0? So if we look back at this first one, dy dx is 0 up here. Now, it may not necessarily be clear what that value is, but we know for sure it's not 0. So when you're looking at your answer choices here, this one, if you plugged in 0, the slope would be 0. This one, if you plugged in 2, the slope would be 0. So it looks like to me anyway that this one is A. And if we go back and look at this graph again, we can kind of see that this was probably 1 and then this would be 2. Now for D, here's where your slopes are 0, and it's hard to see it, but you can see like the slopes are getting less steep as you get closer to 0. So that means if we plug in 0 here, we'd get 0. So this one is D. So then we also would want to look for things that are the same on a vertical line. So that looks like C is the same on a vertical line and F is the same on a vertical line. And then when you look at your answer choices, oops, there should be one more. What am I missing here? Oh, here. When you look at your answer choices, these are all the same on a vertical line because they only have an x in them. So again, now we start looking for where does dy dx equal 0? So this one, the slopes are 0 when you go down the axis right here. So right there, that means x is 0. So the slope is 0 when x is 0. That is only going to work for 4. For 5, you would need to think through, like, if I plugged in like 2, 1/2 times 2 is 1 minus 1 is 0. So it looks like right here at 2, all of your slopes are 0. So this one is F, which means this one by default has to be E. And if you look, you can kind of see that it looks like a graph of sine as you start drawing things through there. Okay, so then that leaves us with 2, 7, and 8. And for ones like that, what you're really thinking through is just this one right here. Where does dy dx equal 0? So like this one, number 2. For that to equal 0, x and y would have to be equal to each other. Like if x is 2 and y is 2, 2 minus 2 would give you 0. So if we think about drawing like the line y equals x in here, that doesn't give me slopes of 0, so that's not going to be it. If I did that here, that gives me slopes of 0, so G is this one. Now with this one, 8, instead of x and y being the same, x and y would have to be opposite of each other. So this one we would be thinking like the line y equals negative x. Well, that doesn't work here, but it does here. So that means our answer is H. So one other thing you want to consider sometimes is not only where is dy dx equal to 0, is where is dy dx undefined. And we can talk about both of these things with this last one. So for 7, dy dx is going to equal 0 when x is equal to 0. And if we look at that, x equals 0, all of those slopes are 0. But it's also going to be undefined when y is 0. They don't show you undefined slopes, but those undefined slopes would be right here, and we can kind of see that the slope fields are doing that. So the slopes are undefined when y is 0, the slopes are 0 when x is 0. That means this is B. So these are some of the guidelines you want to keep in mind when you're matching slope fields. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that.